Carl Jung's words will show the way through the night into the day. Feel the fear, but don't let go. Set the parts you never show. Integration brings you peace. From the chaos, find release. Gotta work, look within. Find the places you.
Greetings, it's time to heal trauma in nature with me again. Today is Sunday, August 23rd, 2026, and this is another Healing Trauma in Nature podcast event brought to you by AJ Inc., Triple M Coaching. I'm so happy you joined me today. My name is AJ. I'm a human programmer. That means I am an expert in self-hypnosis, and I teach my clients how to easily and effortlessly rewire the unconscious programs of self-sabotage. And today's event is called Practice the Fate You Want. How daily rituals create our reality. Now, remember, I prepare as much for each one of these events as I do for a $555 one-on-one session. So be sure to stick around to the end so you don't miss a thing, because this event just might give you the last tool that you need in order to become the human programmer so you can coach yourself into the life that you want to live. So remember, if you're watching this on YouTube or anywhere else, you will not have access to the downloadable workbook. It's a $55 value. So please go to hack-yourself.net right now. Click the Join Hack Nation button to create your free membership to our new classroom. And there you will find the page for this event inside the Human Programmer Academy class, along with a free workbook and a fast-growing community of conscious creators ready to support you on your journey. That being said, let's get started. Most of you are familiar with Carl Jung and his quote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." But most of us don't fully understand what that actually means. When I first heard that quote, I thought Carl Jung was just talking about psychology. But the longer I study the unconscious, the more I believe he was describing something much, much deeper. I don't think most people are waiting for fate to unfold as much as we are practicing it. Every repeated thought, every repeated emotion, each repeated conversation, every repeated action is quietly teaching the unconscious mind what to expect from life. And after enough repetition, your unconscious stops asking for permission, and it simply begins running the programs that you practiced automatically. Over time, we call that personality. We call that habit. We call that just the way I am. Carl Jung called it fate. I call it programming. Here's an idea I'd like you to consider today. Every ritual is a rehearsal. Everything you repeatedly do is teaching your unconscious mind who you are becoming. Meditation is a rehearsal. Mindfulness is rehearsal. Breathwork is rehearsal. Guided self-hypnosis sessions are rehearsal. But so is worry, complaining, people-pleasing, imagining worst-case scenarios, and rehashing old arguments inside the mind. Your unconscious doesn't judge what you're practicing. It simply gets better at whatever you repeat. That's its job. Imagine that I handed you a guitar. I've been a guitar instructor for over 20 years, so I know if it were the first time you picked one up, it probably would feel pretty awkward. You'd have to think about every movement consciously. Your fingers wouldn't know where to go on the fretboard. Now imagine practicing for 20 minutes every day for a year solid. You would become a better guitarist, of course. Not because you wished for it, not because you believed harder, but because your nervous system learned through repetition. Now let me ask you a different question. What if instead of practicing guitar, you practice worry for 20 minutes every day? What if a habit developed over time where every drive became a rehearsal of worst case scenarios? What if every shower became a rehearsal for arguments that haven't happened yet? What if every quiet moment became a rehearsal for self-criticism? Would your unconscious become better at creating peace? Or would it get better at creating worry? You see, your unconscious doesn't know the difference between practicing something you want and practicing something you don't want. It simply gets better at doing whatever you repeat. That's why one of the most important questions we can ever ask ourselves is, what am I practicing daily? Because every practice becomes a pattern. Every pattern becomes a program. Every program begins creating a predictable future. And eventually, that future feels so familiar, we call it fate. Here's another idea that completely changed how I see personal growth. Most people think that they don't have rituals. They imagine rituals belong to monks, mystical spiritual teachers, or people who meditate on mountaintops. I disagree. Every human being has rituals. Some are intentional. Most are unconscious. Let me show you what I mean. Imagine two people begin the first hour of their day. The first person immediately reaches for their phone, messages, social media, news, bills, stress, other people's emergencies. Before their feet even touch the ground, their nervous system has already rehearsed urgency. The second person drinks water, breathes deeply, sits quietly for a few minutes, observes their thoughts, visualizes the person they're becoming, steps outside and notices the trees moving with the wind. Both people had a ritual. Both people programmed their unconscious. Neither escaped programming. The only difference is that one chose it. The other inherited it. That leads us to the most important idea of today's conversation. You are already programming your unconscious every single day. The question isn't whether you're doing it. The question is who's holding the keyboard. Is it fear, the news, the black mirror in your pocket or your hand, your phone, old beliefs, past trauma, other people's expectations? Or are you consciously choosing the person that you're becoming across time? Because every ritual is a rehearsal. And what you rehearse, your unconscious eventually performs automatically. So today, I don't want to convince you to meditate every day. I don't want to convince you to practice breathwork regularly. I don't want to convince you to try guided self-hypnosis. Instead, I want to show you why these practices work. Because once you understand that what they're actually doing inside your unconscious mind, they stop feeling like religious exercises. They become practical tools that allow you to consciously participate in creating your own future, instead of unconsciously rehearsing and living your past. Today, we're going to explore 4 of the most powerful ways to communicate with your unconscious mind: meditation, mindfulness, breathwork, and guided self-hypnosis. Not as separate practices, but as 4 separate doorways leading to the very same place, the control center of your operating system that has been quietly shaping your life all along. The deepest part of you, the one that controls 99% of your feelings, behavior, and actions throughout your day. So now we know something important. Every ritual is a rehearsal. So the question becomes, what should we practice? People often ask me, what is the difference between meditation, mindfulness, breathwork, and self-hypnosis? I think that's the wrong question. I don't see them as different practices. I see them simply as 4 different ways of communicating with the same unconscious mind. Imagine you've just become the CEO of a large company. You don't communicate with every department the same way. Sometimes you observe, sometimes you listen. Sometimes you calm everyone down. Sometimes you introduce a new company policy. Your unconscious works the same way. Each of these practices has a different purpose. When you understand what each one does, you know exactly which tool to reach for. Remember what we learned in the past event. Beliefs are tools, not truth. Well, these are the tools that help us update those beliefs. This is how we put it to practice. So let's start with meditation. Meditation is the tool of awareness. Meditation is not about stopping your thoughts. If you've ever tried, you've probably noticed that's impossible. The mind thinks. That's what it does. Just like the heart beats, the lungs breathe. That's what they're designed to do. Meditation isn't about having fewer thoughts. It's about realizing you are the one noticing them. For the first time, you stop sitting in the middle of the movie and we walk into the projection room. As you begin watching your thoughts, instead of becoming them, instead of allowing them to take over the controls of the body, this is why we call it becoming the observer, or as I call it, becoming the CEO of self. The CEO doesn't run around the office arguing with every employee. The CEO steps back and observes the entire company and asks, what is actually happening here? Meditation teaches us the difference between having a thought and being the thinker. That tiny little space changes everything. Because that space is where choice is born. And that ability to choose is complete and absolute freedom. Mindfulness. Mindfulness is a tool of presence. Meditation is something we practice sitting still. Mindfulness is meditation while living life. Mindfulness means bringing the observer with you throughout your day, while washing dishes, while driving, while talking with your children, while walking, while listening to the river. It's choosing to fully experience this now moment instead of living somewhere else. Have you ever driven somewhere, arrived, and then realized that you don't remember the drive at all? That is autopilot. Your body arrived, but your awareness never left yesterday or tomorrow. Mindfulness gently asks, can you come back to right here? Because life is not happening yesterday. It's not happening tomorrow. Life is only ever happening right now and now. Basically, meditation teaches us how to become aware. Mindfulness teaches us how to stay aware throughout the day. Once we are able to do that, we begin reparenting the inner child in real time. This is when we begin collapsing our limiting unconscious beliefs instantly, in the moment. It's pure magic. Now we're on to breath work. Breath work is a tool of state change, the state of the body. Think about the state of fight, flight, or freeze. It's hard to recognize when you're in freeze. You just have no access to knowledge inside your body and you don't know what to do and you feel like not moving is the safest thing. But once you recognize that you're in the state of freeze, breath work could help you move out of that state into a state of awareness, which would help you move. So that's what breath work is for. It is a tool of state change. It changes the condition of the electrical system inside the body. Here's something most people never learn. Your mind speaks in pictures and words, but your body speaks in chemistry. The bridge between the two is breath. Think about it. When you're afraid, your breathing changes automatically. When you're peaceful, your breathing changes automatically. Your emotions affect your breathing directly. But here's the beautiful part that most people never learn. Your breathing can also change your emotions. Did you hear that? The way you breathe can instantly change the emotions that you're feeling inside your body. It's a two-way conversation. When you intentionally slow your breath, you're sending your nervous system a message. The message, we are safe. The body instantly begins relaxing. The heart instantly begins to slow down. The moment that you decide to consciously breathe slower and deeper. The nervous system automatically begins to shift out of survival mode. And now, the CEO of yourself can think clearly again. Trying to think positively while your body believes it's in danger is like trying to drive with the emergency brake on. Breath work releases the brake. It prepares the nervous system for change. Guided self-hypnosis. This is the tool of installation. This is how we write new programs. This is how we visualize ourselves being the person we want to become. Now we arrive at my favorite, because this is where change becomes intentional. If meditation creates awareness, one session at a time, if mindfulness keeps us present throughout our day, breath work prepares the nervous system and changes the state of the body, then self-hypnosis installs the updated programs. Think about your phone. Every once in a while, it needs an operating system update. Not because it was broken, but because the software has improved and the digital world has changed. Your unconscious is no different. Many of the beliefs that you are carrying today were written years ago. Some when you were 5, some when you were 15, some during the hardest seasons of your life. They weren't wrong. They were simply written with the information you had at the time. Guided self-hypnosis gives you the opportunity to sit quietly, visit those old programs, thank them for protecting you, and consciously write new ones. Not by pretending, not by forcing yourself to think positively, but by giving your unconscious repeated experiences that support the person you're becoming. Because your unconscious does not know the difference between an imagined experience and a real experience. So we can use guided self-hypnosis sessions to create experiences inside that are so real, they rewire the entire system. So we have 4 different tools, and this is how I see them. I know there's many different ideas. These are old, ancient studies and practices, and I'm making them simple here. So I'm not trying to say I'm an expert at these things. These are just how I use them in simple ways to understand them. Meditation helps me observe the installed code. In silence, I watch what the mind is doing automatically. Mindfulness helps me catch the code while it's running throughout my day. I practice mindfulness throughout my day. Breathwork creates the safety needed and puts the system in the state where you can change the code beneath the programs. And guided self-hypnosis helps me to write the new code by seeing myself in the future already doing it. This helps the body learn a new way of living. So we have 4 practices, 1 operating system, 1 mission to consciously become the person that I choose to become, instead of unconsciously repeating the person I was programmed to be. And that brings us to something fascinating. If these tools really do help us to communicate with the unconscious mind, when is the unconscious most receptive? Because if we knew the best time of the day to update the software, wouldn't it make sense to use it? That's exactly what we're going to explore next. Why the first hour of your day matters most. Your first thoughts become your default thoughts for the rest of the day. Let's imagine something together. Imagine buying a brand new computer. You press the power button, the operating system begins loading. One by one, programs begin opening. Now imagine that before the computer finishes loading, someone secretly installs a program that runs in the background all day long. You might never notice it, but every file you open, every email you write would be influenced by that program. I believe something very similar happens during the first part of our day, not because it's magical, but because of how our minds naturally work. Your mind is already open during the first hour after we rise from sleep. Our brain is naturally transitioning between slower and faster brainwave states. Without getting too technical, this is one of the most receptive times of the day, because in that waking time, that hour of waking, maybe not quite a whole hour, but in that moment of waking, the mind is in the receptive mode. It's in the trance of learning. And this is one of the most receptive times of day. Also when you go to bed, That's when you want to add an evening routine, but we're going to just start with morning routines right now, one thing at a time. Your analytical mind hasn't completely taken over yet. Your unconscious is already listening. Think about it. Have you ever awakened from a dream that felt incredibly real? For a few moments, you weren't questioning it. You were experiencing it. That's because your unconscious was leading the experience. As awareness fully returns, your conscious mind gradually takes over the driver's seat. And that time of transition, every day gives us a beautiful opportunity. Instead of letting the world decide what fills our mind first, we can decide to choose for ourselves. Your first input sets the direction. Here's a question I ask myself often. What is the very first conversation my unconscious will hear today? For many people, it's news, social media, emails, bills, arguments, other people's fears, politics. Before they've even taken a full breath, someone else has already started writing today's story for them. Imagine beginning every day by borrowing someone else's emotional state. After a while, it starts feeling normal, but familiar isn't always healthy. One small choice can influence every choice that follows. Think about it. If your first experience is rushing, you're more likely to rush throughout breakfast, rush through conversations, rush through work, rush through traffic, rush through your relationships. The first domino doesn't cause everything, but it changes the direction that everything that follows. Now imagine beginning differently. Water, breath, stillness, gratitude, nature, intention. Notice how those first few choices create a completely different momentum for the day. You haven't changed your schedule. You've changed your starting point, and that changes everything. One of the greatest gifts you can give yourself is a few quiet moments before the world begins making demands, before the notifications, before the conversations, before the responsibilities, before everyone else tells you what deserves your attention. Take a few moments to decide for yourself, who do I choose to be today? How do I want to show up? What kind of energy do I want to practice? Because remember, every ritual is a rehearsal. If you rehearse stress, stress becomes familiar. If you rehearse peace, peace becomes familiar. Your unconscious doesn't know you're just getting ready for the day. It believes this is who we are. Why visualization works. People sometimes ask me, does visualization really work? I think they're asking the wrong question. The better question is, what are you already visualizing? Because everyone visualizes. Some people imagine success. Others imagine failure. Some rehearse healthy conversations. Others rehearse arguments that never happened. Or even worse, we practice arguments that are over, thinking we're simply preparing to win the next time, when in reality, all we're doing is actually creating the next argument. Some choose to imagine opportunities. Others imagine everything that could go wrong. The unconscious doesn't stop visualizing what we hold in our mind. The only choice we have is whether we visualize intentionally or accidentally. When we deliberately imagine ourselves responding with confidence, setting healthy boundaries, remaining calm, our nervous system begins rehearsing that experience. Then when life presents a similar situation, it feels familiar to what we rehearsed, not because we've actually lived it, but because we practiced it. I want to give you another picture of your mind. Imagine your mind is a garden. Every morning, someone plants seeds. The question isn't, will seeds be planted? The question is, who's holding the seed bag? Fear, the media, past trauma, old beliefs, or your conscious awareness? A garden doesn't argue with the seed. It simply grows what is planted and watered every day. Your unconscious works exactly the same way. So the human programmer's first hour, here's how I see it. The first hour isn't about becoming more productive. It isn't about checking more boxes. It isn't about squeezing more work into your schedule. It's about choosing what kind of person you're going to practice being. Because if you practice becoming peaceful, you become more peaceful. If you practice becoming grateful, gratitude becomes easier. If you practice becoming courageous, courage slowly becomes your default response. Your first hour doesn't determine your entire day, but it powerfully influences the direction your unconscious begins traveling. And that's why I believe your first hour is one of the greatest investments that you could make. Not because time is valuable, because attention is valuable. Where your attention goes, your programming grows. The next question becomes, what should we actually do during that time? If you only had 30 to 60 minutes, what practices would create the greatest change over time? After years of experimenting, coaching, and rebuilding my own life, I finally settled on a simple daily routine that prepares my mind, my body, and my unconscious for the person I choose to become. Let me walk you through it. I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all waking routine. Your ritual should fit your life. But I do think there are a few elements that communicate with every level of who we are. Over the years, after rebuilding my own life and experimenting with just about every personal growth practice I could find, I've settled on 7 simple steps to my morning ritual. Because together, they communicate with your body, your conscious mind, and your unconscious mind. So let's walk through them together. Step 1, hydrate the body. The first message I send myself isn't through words, it's through chemistry. After several hours of sleep, your body is naturally dehydrated. Before I feed my mind, I feed my body. A fresh glass of alkaline water is a simple way of telling your nervous system, I'm taking care of you. It isn't just hydration, it's the first vote of the day, and that vote is for self-respect. Small actions become identity. Step 2, breathe before thought. Before I think, I breathe. Not because breathing is spiritual, because breathing changes my state of being. Most people begin their day reacting. I want to begin by regulating. A few slow, intentional breaths tell my nervous system we are safe. Only then do I ask my mind to think clearly. Because the CEO makes better decisions when the security department isn't sounding false alarms. So personally, I do 20 to 60 minutes of breath work. because that's what it takes to change my state into a higher state of being. Step 3, I become the observer. Now, I sit quietly, not to stop thinking, not to empty my mind, but to simply observe what it's doing, to see what it's up to. I watch thoughts come, I watch thoughts go. Some are helpful, some aren't. But none of them are me. Every few minutes, I remind myself that I am the ancient awareness noticing this experience. That one realization changes everything. Because once you can observe the thought, you no longer have to obey it or even believe that it's real. Step 4, meet your future self. This is probably my favorite part. Instead of asking, what do I have to do today? I ask, who do I want to become today? Then I spend a few minutes imagining that version of myself. As that version, how do I stand? How do I breathe? How do I handle challenges? How does that version of me speak to himself inside? How does he treat other people? Notice, I'm not visualizing getting things. I'm visualizing becoming someone. Because when identity changes, behavior naturally follows. I'm using my imagination to visualize myself as something I've yet to become. The reason I do this is because the imagination is the master control center of our unconscious operating system. Step 5, I install today's program. Now it's time for guided self-hypnosis installation. This is where I intentionally communicate with my unconscious mind. Maybe today's installation is, I am enough. Maybe it's, I remain calm under pressure. Maybe it's, I enjoy healthy boundaries. The exact words aren't as important as the repetition. Remember, your unconscious learns through experience. Guided self-hypnosis sessions create that experience. Before life asks you to live it, you're rehearsing the person you're becoming. Step 6, move your body. Movement tells your nervous system it's time to live. Stretch, walk, lift weights, dance, practice yoga. I don't care how you move, just move. I personally have a bow staff that I love hitting myself in the head with at least 20 times a morning. I'm practicing every day and getting better at it. But my future self can kick ass with that thing. And so every day I practice it so that he can get the skills that he told me he wanted. Because emotions are energy in motion. Movement reminds your body that growth is something that we practice, not something that we wait for. We get up and do the hard things. Step 7, connect with nature. Your body is a tuning fork. You wake up tuned to whatever yesterday was. So before you start your day, tune yourself to God's tone. Tune yourself to the trees and the crickets and the wind. So finally, step outside. I don't have to. I sleep outside. Where I'm at, it has been summer for months. And so for 2 months, I slept with my doors open. I wake up to deer poking their head in my van. But so I do my whole routine outside because I'm already outside. But if you're indoors, if you are a caged animal and you live indoors, step outside, even if it's for a few moments on the way to the car or bus. Leave 5 minutes early or be 5 minutes late. That's how important it is. Nature reminds me of something that I often forget. Nature is not rushing. Nature is peaceful. Nothing is apologizing for existing in nature. The trees aren't comparing themselves to each other. The birds aren't worrying about tomorrow. The river isn't asking permission to flow. Nature quietly reminds me how life behaves when it's not resisting itself. Every time I slow down long enough to notice, I leave feeling more like myself. So sit in nature. The order matters. Notice the progression. First, I care for my body. Then I calm my nervous system. Then I observe my mind. Next, I install the identity that I want to be. And then I anchor it all through movement and finally connect with reality through nature. Each step prepares me for the next, and together they become one conversation with the unconscious parts of me. So don't copy mine. Understand the purpose behind it. We're not creating a religion here. I'm not a leader of any sort. I'm showing you how I became the CEO of the many parts of me, how I've organized them over time with this ritual in the morning. You get to make up your own. You understand the purpose behind each step and then build the one that fits your life. So ask yourself, what helps me feel safe? What helps me become aware? What helps me remember who I'm becoming? What helps me reconnect with reality? What practice leaves me feeling more alive? Create your own ritual in the free workbook for this video, found only at hackyourself.net in the Human Programmer Academy classroom. So remember, perfection is not the goal. Consistency is. 5 intentional minutes every day will always create way more change than one perfect practice once a month. Your unconscious isn't keeping score. It's collecting repetitions. Now we've learned how to build an intentional ritual. But one question remains. If these practices are so powerful, why do most people still not change? The answer surprised me. It has very little to do with motivation and almost everything to do with your identity. Let's talk about why lasting change feels so difficult and how to make it almost inevitable. Identity always wins. By now, we've talked about something most people never realize, that your unconscious is always practicing. Your daily rituals are shaping your future. And now you have the tools to build a simple daily ritual that can begin changing your programming. So why do so many people still struggle to change? Why do people read books, watch videos, attend seminars, feel inspired, and then slowly drift back into the same old life? I don't think it's because they're lazy. I don't think it's because they lack discipline. I really don't. I think they're trying to change their behavior without changing their identity. Like modern day medical doctors, these people are putting band-aids on symptoms rather than fixing the root problem. Let me explain. Imagine someone trying to quit smoking. Every day they tell themselves, I'm trying to quit. Listen carefully to that sentence. I'm trying. They're still identifying as a smoker. Their identity is, I'm a smoker attempting to quit. They're simply trying not to smoke as a smoker. Eventually, their identity pulls them back. Now imagine someone saying this decisive phrase instead, intentionally. I don't smoke. Same behavior, completely different identity speaking it. Identity always wins. The unconscious asks one simple question. Who are we? Then it quietly creates behaviors that match the answer. Have you ever noticed how uncomfortable it feels to act like somebody that you're not? That's because your unconscious loves consistency. If I believe that I'm shy, speaking confidently feels uncomfortable to me. If I believe that I'm not enough, then receiving a compliment feels uncomfortable. If I believe that I'm bad with money, charging what I'm worth feels uncomfortable. The discomfort isn't proof that I'm doing something wrong. It's proof that I'm doing something new. Growth often feels unfamiliar before it feels natural. One of the biggest myths in personal growth is this: I'll do it when I feel confident. Think about that. When did you become confident at riding a bike? Before or after you practiced? When did you become confident driving? Before or after hundreds of hours behind the wheel? Confidence isn't what comes first. Confidence is what repetition creates. That's why I tell my clients, don't practice confidence. Practice courage. Courage says, I'll do it even if it feels uncomfortable. You are the definition of courage when you're doing it scared. And after enough repetitions of doing it scared, the confidence quietly begins to appear. We often overestimate what we can do in one day and underestimate what we can become in 1 year. Think about a river. It doesn't carve a canyon in one afternoon. It changes the landscape one drop at a time. Your identity changes exactly the same way. One healthy meal doesn't make you healthy. One meditation session doesn't make you mindful. One boundary doesn't make you confident. But thousands of small repetitions create someone who naturally lives that way. Identity is built across time, one decision at a time. So stop waiting to feel ready. This might be one of the biggest programs I help people update. I'll start when I'm ready. What if ready isn't a feeling? What if ready is a decision? Think back to every meaningful change in your life. Did you feel completely ready, or did you simply decide and grow into the person the experience required? Waiting to feel ready often keeps us practicing hesitation. Making one small decision begins practicing leadership. Affirmations have value. Visualization has value. But your nervous system believes something even more powerful. Evidence. If every day you keep one small promise to yourself, your unconscious begins collecting proof. I will follow through. I can trust myself. I finish what I start. Self-trust isn't something you think your way into. It's something you build. One kept promise at a time. That's why I always recommend starting small. Choose something so simple that success becomes almost inevitable. Because every success becomes evidence, and every piece of evidence updates your identity. People often ask me, How do I become my future self? I don't think you become them overnight. I think we practice them today. If your future self is calm and you are currently learning that skill of calmness, practice one calm response today. If your future self has healthy boundaries and you are just now realizing how healthy boundaries work in relationships, then practice one healthy boundary this week. If your future self exercises and you are currently not consistent in your workout routine, move your body on purpose today in a way that's fun. If your future self speaks kindly to themselves and you still hear internal echoes of past trauma, practice one kind sentence. The future isn't waiting for you. It's being rehearsed right now. Whenever you're unsure what to do, ask yourself one simple question. What would the person I'm becoming practice now? Not tomorrow, not next year, right now. Then do the smallest version of that answer, because every repetition casts another vote for your future identity. So now we understand that change doesn't happen because we get inspired. Change happens because we repeatedly practice becoming someone new. The unconscious doesn't resist change. It simply protects familiarity, which means if we want a different future, we don't need more motivation. We need better rehearsals. So before we finish today, I want to help you design a daily routine that is uniquely yours. Not mine, not someone else's, yours. Because the most powerful ritual is the one that you'll actually practice. So don't copy someone else's life. Build one that fits yours. We've talked about why rituals matter. We've explored 4 powerful ways to communicate with the unconscious. We've built a human programmer daily ritual. But here's something I want you to remember. The best ritual isn't the longest one. It's the one you'll actually do every day. I've seen people download a perfect 2-hour morning routine, practice it for 3 days, feel overwhelmed, and quit. Then they conclude, I guess routines just don't work for me. No, the routine simply didn't fit the person. So let's stop trying to build the perfect ritual and start building your ritual, the one that you will do every morning. Start with the outcome. Most people ask, what should I do? I think there's a better question. Who am I becoming? Because your ritual isn't about checking boxes. It's about practicing an identity. Maybe you're becoming someone who is calm, someone who trusts themselves, someone who keeps promises, someone who leads their tribe with patience, someone who speaks with confidence. Whatever it is, begin there, because identity determines the ritual, not the other way around. People ask often, how long should I meditate? How many breaths should I take? How long should I visualize? My answer is always the same. Long enough to become the person you're practicing. Some days that might be 5 minutes. Some days it might be 30. The goal isn't to fill time. The goal is to create change. Never confuse a longer ritual with a better ritual. It's about creating full body feelings. It's about when you're visualizing your future self, feeling the emotions that you're bringing up. And as you're coming out of fight, flight, or freeze, that's a skill you must develop. It's going to take many, I don't want to tell you what it's going to take. It's going to take a few times of trying it before you're going to start getting control over the emotions. And it might take a while for some of us. It took me many years to figure it out because I was doing it by myself. But you're not doing it by yourself. You have a community around you that loves you. And you can do this quickly if you put your attention to the morning routine and doing these steps in order. Well, in order that feels right to you. Feel free to switch the order if you feel the need to. Every ritual should answer 4 questions. As you build your practice, make sure it includes these 4 elements. How do I calm my body? This might be breath work, walking, stretching, movement, because regulated nervous system learns faster. Number 2, how do I observe my mind? You can use meditation, stillness, journaling, quiet reflection, because awareness comes before choice. Number 3, what identity am I practicing today? Not what do I need to accomplish, but who do I choose to become? That one question changes everything. Number 4, how will I anchor it into my day? One action, one conversation, one healthy boundary, one courageous decision. Because identity isn't built in meditation. It's revealed in everyday life. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is trying to change everything all at once. Your unconscious doesn't need perfection. It needs repetition. So start small. So small that your present self cannot make an excuse. 1 minute of breathing, 5 minutes of walking, 1 page of journaling, 1 visualization, 1 healthy decision. Small wins. Become self-trust, and self-trust becomes transformation. Here's a question I ask my coaching clients. What makes your ritual harder than it needs to be? Do you need to put your journal beside your chair? Leave a water bottle by your bed? Charge your phone in another room? Lay out your walking shoes the night before? Open the blinds before you go to sleep? Sometimes lasting change isn't about becoming more disciplined. It's about making healthy choices, the easiest choices. Design your environment so your future self naturally succeeds. I want you to think about tomorrow, not next month, tomorrow. If you could give yourself just 30 intentional minutes, what would they look like? Here's a simple framework. My rising hour ritual. Hydrate. Breathe. Observe the mind. Visualize the future. Install new programs. Move the body. Connect with nature. Notice these aren't rules. These are simple building blocks. Arrange them in a way that fits your life, in a way that feels right to you. If you can't do these things before you go to work, do them when you get home from work. Figure out a way to put a daily routine in of self-care so you can start connecting with these parts of your unconscious mind. Remember your why. Your ritual isn't about becoming more productive. It isn't about getting more done. It isn't about impressing anyone. It's about becoming someone your inner child feels safe following. Someone your future self is proud to be. Someone who no longer waits for life to happen, but consistently participates in creating it. When your why is strong, Your ritual becomes something you look forward to instead of another task on your calendar. I don't want you to believe anything I've said here today. Test it. Become a scientist. For the next 7 days, change only one thing. Protect the first 30 minutes after you rise from sleep. Don't judge. Don't force. Simply observe. Notice your thoughts. Notice your emotions. Notice your energy. Notice your relationships. Collect evidence. Because your nervous system believes evidence more than opinions. After all these years, I've realized something. The most important ritual isn't meditation. It isn't breathwork. It isn't self-hypnosis. Those are all incredible tools. But the greatest ritual is returning to awareness again and again and again. Every time you notice you've drifted into fear, return. Every time you catch yourself replaying an old story, return. Every time life pulls you into autopilot, simply return. Not with judgment, with curiosity. Because every return is another repetition. And every repetition is another vote for the person you're becoming. We've covered a lot today. We've explored how rituals shape the unconscious. We've learned why the first part of our day matters. We've discovered 4 powerful doorways into the unconscious mind. And now you've begun designing a ritual that reflects the person you're becoming. So let's bring all of this together, because there's one final idea I want to leave you with. One idea that has the power to change how you see every single day for the rest of your life. It's so simple. But if you truly understand it, you'll never look at your daily rituals the same way again. Fate is practiced every day, one thought at a time, one breath at a time, one choice at a time. You're already practicing something, whether you realize it or not. You already have daily rituals. You're already practicing a future. Every repeated thought is a rehearsal. Every repeated emotion is rehearsal. Every repeated conversation is rehearsal. Every repeated story you tell about yourself, you guessed it, is a rehearsal. Every time you imagine what could go wrong, you are practicing that future. However, every time you imagine what's possible, you're practicing that future as well. It works both ways. Your unconscious doesn't decide whether you're practicing something positive or negative. It simply asks, should I get better at this? Then each time you repeat the process, it does. So think about every skill you've learned. Walking, talking, driving, reading, if you play an instrument. None of them happened overnight. But over time, through repetition, they became automatic. Your identity develops exactly the same way. You don't become peaceful by hoping. You practice peace inside. You don't become courageous by waiting to be ready. You practice courage. You don't become confident by wishing. You practice confidence. The unconscious doesn't understand intentions. It only understands what you practice. So the most important question, if every repetition becomes programming, then maybe the most important question we can ask ourselves isn't, what do I want? Maybe the much better question is, what am I practicing? Because whatever we're practicing today we're becoming tomorrow. You are the CEO. Imagine your inner child walking into your office every day. They're not asking, what should we believe? They're looking at you and asking, what are we practicing today? Are we practicing fear or trust? Scarcity or gratitude? Self-criticism or self-respect? Resentment or forgiveness? They aren't listening to your words. They're watching your rituals. That's how children learn. And that's how your unconscious learns too. The beauty of small changes. One of my favorite things about nature, why I always sit out in nature, is that it never seems to hurry. This river doesn't rush to the ocean. A tree doesn't panic because winter arrived. The sun doesn't skip ahead because it's excited for tomorrow. Nature simply practices being itself, one moment at a time. And over time, those tiny moments create forests, carve canyons, shape mountains. The greatest transformations almost always happen quietly. Your life works the same way. Never underestimate one intentional breath, one peaceful moment, one healthy boundary, one honest conversation, one walk through nature, one guided self-hypnosis session. Those small moments aren't insignificant. They are installing your future. So here's my invitation. Don't believe me. Don't believe Carl Jung. Don't even believe yourself. Just become a scientist. For the next 7 days, protect the first part of your day. Build a simple ritual. Observe your thoughts. Observe your emotions. Observe your relationships. Collect evidence, because your unconscious believes evidence more than opinions. Maybe we've been asking ourselves the wrong questions all along. Instead of asking, how can I change my life? Maybe we should ask, what kind of person am I practicing becoming? Because when that answer changes, everything changes. Your conversation change, your relationships change, your health changes. Your business changes, your family changes, your future changes. Not because life suddenly became easier, but because you became a different person. Whenever you catch yourself replaying an old story, pause. Take one slow breath. Notice the program. Smile. You've already won. Because awareness means you are no longer asleep inside the program. Then ask yourself, if I were practicing the fate I truly want, what would I do next? Not tomorrow, not next year, right now. Then take the smallest possible step, because one step becomes one repetition. One repetition becomes one pattern. One pattern becomes one identity. And one identity becomes your life. I'd like to leave you with one final thought. I don't believe fate is written somewhere beyond us. I believe much of what we call fate is simply the unconscious becoming exceptionally good at whatever we've practiced the longest. Which means your future isn't something you wait for. It's something you rehearse right now. Every day, with every breath, with every thought, with every repetition. So don't wait for the life you want. Practice it now. Become aware. Lead with love. Choose with intention. And before the world tells you who to become, take your seat as CEO of self. Because your unconscious is always listening. And the life you're creating is being programmed, one ritual at a time. Thank you so much for spending time with me. Until next time, keep healing, keep growing, and remember, your rituals become your reality.